When Slapped Ham was about 5 or 6, he always slept with a nightlight. Also, his baby sister's monitor was in his parents' room, right next to his. One night, Slapped Ham was asleep and had woken up for some reason. He realized that his cheap nightlight had died, and he immediately got really scared. He went to his parents' room, but then heard the sound of whispering from behind him. He spun around, and he saw his sister's baby monitor on his bedside table. He knew that he had not put it in there, so he went into his sister's room to make sure that she was okay. He found her father there, standing over her crib, whispering in her ear and holding her mouth shut with his hand. When Slapped Ham called his name, he looked over and said, "Shh." Slapped Ham then went into his parents' room, only to find both of them laying in their bed, sleeping. He realized that the man in his sister's bedroom was not her dad, so he went back to find him, but his sister was gone. Slapped Ham woke up his parents and they immediately called the police. The police ended up finding this man in their basement, where he had hidden with Slapped Ham's sister. Luckily, she was okay. The police also discovered that he had been living in their basement ceiling, and they discovered clothes, a sleeping bag, a backpack, and knives. The man later confessed that he was planning to use the knives to murder the family while they slept.
The weirdest school rule I've ever heard, and had actually since I experienced it, was a bathroom policy we had. The teacher would always say, "You're only allowed one bathroom break. I don't care if you're pissing your pants. You're only allowed one." It was a terrible and weird idea because of the fact that there was plenty of kids that actually ended up peeing themselves in the school during the time when they actually needed to use the bathroom. The rule didn't actually get revoked. They probably still to this day actually use that rule just to control people because they get irritated at some of the students always asking that they needed to use the bathroom when in reality they didn't. But for the people that really did need to use it, they ended up just pissing themselves the whole time they went to that school.
Working at a pet store, Dolan has seen more than his fair share of brats. One day, a family with 2 kids came in to use the self-serve dog washing station. While Mom and Dad were washing the pooch, the kids ran around screaming and knocking things off the shelves. The parents saw what destructive shits their kids were being, but they didn't seem to care. Dolan followed their trail of destruction around the store and cleaned up after them. When he walked around the corner, he saw that the kids had jumped into a big display of cat litter. They were laughing and throwing litter around like it was a big sand pit. Their parents eventually paid and left without once apologizing for their kids' behavior.
Pringle was only 13 when he was walking around the park with his best friend. While hanging out at the crowded park, a man and woman began to run around naked while covered in mud and chicken feathers. They kept screaming, "Meat eaters must die! Meat eaters must pay!" Although Pringle found the incident so disturbing that it scarred him for life, his best friend thought it was hilarious. To this day, Pringle actually feels sorry for the couple since he believes they were drunk and are now probably very embarrassed at what they did that day.
Last June, Spinal Palm and a few friends went to Denver Comic Con. On their 3rd day, they decided to try out a special event called Sci-Fi Speed Dating. It was just a standard speed dating thing, but everyone was in a costume. One of his friends decided to try it because she was looking to get back into the dating scene, but didn't know how to start a conversation. Spinal Palm told her to just be herself and try not to say anything remotely stupid such as, "Do you like milk?" His friend laughed and said she surely wouldn't. Once it was his turn to start the sci-fi speed dating, 14 people were there. He then saw the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, Princess Proton. Once the announcer launched the clock, Spinal Palm had to think of something fast to say. At that point in time, he hadn't been dating in a while. He panicked. With time starting to run out, he just blurted out,
So, do you like milk?
Princess Proton looked at him in complete confusion for the remaining 20 seconds. He bowed his head in shame until the end of the speed date.
Nixiam was walking home from a bar one night when he saw a very drunk guy riding his bike in the opposite direction. The guy could barely stay upright and swaying around. He hit the curb going full speed and launched himself headfirst into the back of a road sign. Naturally, he laughed at the poor guy, but he wouldn't get up, so Nixium tried to help him. The guy was completely drenched in his own blood. He gave Nixium a thumbs up while saying, "I'm fine." He then proceeded to grab his bike and ride away, only to hit a taxi, smearing the white cab in his blood, only to ride off again, yelling, "I'm fine!"
Shima's weirdest secret is kind of a sensitive topic for her. She has this fantasy of being swallowed whole by someone the same size as her, especially someone she likes. Naturally, her friends and her family have no idea. She stresses that this is not a dangerous fantasy. Shima sees it more as a way to get close to someone, like a form of intimacy, with a lot more spit and stomach acid. She claims that all she wants is to be inside them. Yeah. After some research, Shima discovered this fantasy is called Vor, so although it might be a little unusual, she's definitely not alone.
Well, when Robo was newly manufactured, she believed that all her favorite cartoon characters were stored inside of them. She also believed that her family spoke a completely unique language compared to the rest of the world. But no, Spanish is not exactly unique.
One day, Mimi had to go to Florida for a business trip, and she decided to go to the hotel pool. The only other person there was a woman on her phone. After she hung up, Mimi and the woman started talking. The woman was on the phone with her husband, so she started talking about him and got out a picture of her husband and 2 kids. Mimi saw her boyfriend in that picture. She asked the woman about her husband's phone number, and it matched the number of Mimi's boyfriend. Mimi had been dating him for 5 years, the same amount of time the woman had been married to him. They called him together to tell him that Mimi was breaking up with him and that his wife was throwing him out of the house. After that, Mimi and her ex-boyfriend's wife became good friends.
When Salty Squid was about 13, there was a beautiful girl in his grade that he really liked. She was the sister of Salty Squid's best friend, so they all hung out together. He found out that his crush had a bully, so he found out where the bully lived. Salty Squid brought his friend and his crush to the bully's house, went to his front door, and peed all over it in front of them. Well, it turned out the bully's dad was home and opened the door to find Salty Squid peeing on the doorway. He said, "Get out of here, you little dickhead!" and slapped Salty Squid as hard as he could. His friend and his crush stood there watching and just laughed at him. He never actually ended up going out with her. In fact, 2 days later, they moved out of the country.
When Sid was in high school, he discovered he had a weird secret compulsion. Every day before classes, he would wait until all the other students had gone. He would hang around the lockers in front of the science room, pretending to search for something in his bag. When he was finally alone, he would go around to each locker and lick the doors. He couldn't explain why, but he just had to slurp the lockers up and down, tasting all the disgusting tastes that were on them. None of his classmates ever found out why their lockers were always dripping in saliva.
Pringle was 6 or 7 when he lived in Texas and had his room right next to his mom and dad's. He always had nightmares about the man in the wall. One night, Pringle woke up screaming and then saw his dad in the doorway with a knife, but he was just staring at the wall. When Pringle looked over, he saw the man, who was very tall and all black with a weird crown or something on his head. After that, Pringle screamed and started crying. Then his dad walked into the kitchen and put the knife away. Then he went back to bed, so Pringle ran back into his room again, but the man was still there, standing by the closet. Pringle let out the loudest scream, and his mom came in with a gun and asked what was wrong. He told her that the man in the wall had tried to hurt him. The next day at the table, he asked his dad why he had the knife and was just standing at the doorway to his room. But his dad had no memory of this, and he asked Pringle if he was dreaming. He told his dad the whole story. Now Pringle is 13 and has a little brother who wakes up screaming sometimes with the same nightmare.
One time, Doopy got invited to a big New Year's party. She didn't really want to go because she didn't know anyone there, but it meant a lot to her date. Doopy started pre-drinking before the party and was already in throw-up territory well before midnight. When the midnight countdown started, Doopy felt super woozy. Her date stared into Doopy's eyes, ready to kiss her, and Doopy threw up all inside his mouth. Ugh. Her date was horrified and never called Doopy again.
Honeybits was on the subway with her friend and her mum. In their cab was a thin white dude who looked like he was going to lose a fight with a worm. He was on his phone and at first he was just whispering. Honeybits noticed that the people around him were giving him weird looks as he started getting angrier. Eventually he stood up and yelled into the phone, "Put the money in the bag and get out of there." He angrily got off at the next station. Unfortunately, that was Honeybits' stop as well. Honeybits was walking behind him when a homeless looking man walked up to him and asked, "So what happened?" The man said that Tyler didn't get the money to buy the drugs. Honeybits, her mum and her friend all stopped instead until the men turned around and yelled, "What do you want, girls?" After that they ran off. In 3rd grade, Doopy had a teacher who hated her job and took her anger out in the class and usually aimed her rage at the students. One day she told them to read a book and write a 2-page report on it. The whole class all worked hard on the assignment, so when Doopy got a grade back, the teacher had given her 0% and said she never turned it in, even though she definitely did. The teacher then called in Doopy's parents for a meeting, told them that all she did in class was fool around and talk to other students. As she went to get a binder out of her desk, a small folder dropped out, and when her parents looked at it, they realized it was Doopy's folder, the same one that she had used to turn in her assignment. Her parents told the principal, the teacher got fired, and her grade was fixed. Serves you right, you bitch.
In 4th grade, Spincess started at a new school. At the first day, she noticed a group of girls looking at her menacingly. Then, on the next day, they stopped her and asked if she wanted to see something cool. Spincess agreed and followed them to the bathroom. Once they were in the bathroom, the girls attacked her. They hung her by her underwear before leaving. During the 3 hours that she was hanging there, the other kids noticed her, but didn't help. She was freed once the principal walked in and saw her. The bullies ended up getting suspended, and Spincess changed schools yet again.
The worst teacher Pringle had was incredibly mean, and always screamed when they did the smallest things wrong. She made Pringle and his classmates do really hard projects, like making them memorize a 3-page script in 1 week, and then read out the script in front of the whole class. If they failed, the teacher would hit them on the head or in the stomach with a giant wooden ruler. If she didn't have a ruler, she would twist their ears until they turned red. She ended up getting fired because she twisted the ear of one of his classmates so hard that she ripped a little bit of skin under the ear until it bled. All this because he forgot his notebook. His notebook!
The weirdest advice Shima ever got was from her best friend. He told her that if she ever came to class late, that she should put moss on the teacher's desk and leave a note that said, "I already got my tardigrade." The organism tardigrade lives in moss. Another time, he told her to make connect the dots on any paper that she didn't feel confident with, and that the dots had to spell out 100 so the teacher would connect the dots and Shima would get an automatic A every time. She ended up trying both, and the teacher died of laughter both times. At least the teacher had a sense of humor.
One day, while Tolop and his friends were walking home from school, they heard someone shouting,
Fuck this shit! I'm out!
So they looked and saw a man, fully naked and handcuffed, on top of a van. He jumped to the ground, landing on his face. Tolop and his friends backed up, with Tolop saying,
"This man is either drunk or taking drugs."
The man stood up and ran into the windows of a police car. Then the man ran into the school saying,
You'll never catch me alive, fuckers!
When the cops got him, the man said,
Elvis has left the building.
And they drove away. That day was the funniest day ever for Tolop and his friends. One time when she was 4, Doopy was jumping on the couch. Her babysitter walked into the room and told her to come to her. She stopped jumping and obeyed the babysitter. She said that she wanted to see Doopy's arm. Confused, she showed the babysitter her arm, but the babysitter grabbed it and twisted so much that it broke. Doopy cried from the pain. When her mom came home, she took her to the hospital where she tried to tell her what happened. Her mom didn't believe her, since the babysitter had told her that Doopy had fallen off the couch while she was jumping on it. After that night, whenever her mom hired that babysitter, Doopy always had her guard.
When he was 3, Sid had a weird reoccurring dream where he'd be laying in bed. Then, out of nowhere, Scrappy-Doo from Scooby-Doo would be laying next to him, and a little leprechaun-like creature would come out of his closet. Scrappy-Doo would jump out of his bed and use some sort of freeze breath to get rid of it. Now, years later, Sid still doesn't know why he even had that dream.
Pandora was at a local Walmart buying some food when she noticed a guy in the clothing aisle holding onto a John Cena t-shirt and whispering, "It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna get you out of this hellhole." That was when he kissed Cena's lips on the shirt. Pandora had to walk away because she was snickering way too much. It was a bizarre yet funny moment for her.
One time Zeragamba and his friend went on a huge all-night bender. The next morning he woke with a terrible hangover. He was slowly getting out of bed. Ooh, when his roommate shouted, "The cops are outside!" The cops then barged in and arrested Zeragamba for public nudity. They showed some security footage of him dancing naked in the street singing the Mary Poppins song, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." This was really out of character for Zeragamba. He had no memory of his naked performance and is normally very shy. When Andy and her friends eat together, she can smack her lips because one of her best friends, Froggy, hates it, even though it's unintentional. One time, Andy had a chicken roll that was amazing. She turned to Froggy and said,
That was delicious.
and smacked her lips. Froggy cringed and nearly went to smack Andy, yelling at her to stop. Despite Andy doing it accidentally most of the time, Froggy still loves her, because that's what true friends do. In high school, Ghost Toast was extremely shy and he had no self-confidence. Whenever he tried talking to women, he would just get tongue-tied and make a complete fool of himself. His friend told him that he would become more confident if he just got out of his comfort zone and did something unexpected. So later on at the mall, Ghost Toast was thinking about this advice when he spotted the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He gave himself a quick pep talk, and then he walked right up to her to say, "Hi." But before Ghost Toast could get a word out, the girl of his dreams looked at him and said, "Ew, fuck off, you creep." Ghost Toast felt his self-esteem shatter into 1,000 pieces, and it took months for him to recover from the savage blow.
When Froggy was 10, she had a dream about her 4th grade class, particularly her teacher. She had gotten to school really late, like 11 a.m. Froggy and her best friend were racing down the hall to get to class, but when they got there, all the chairs were out of the classroom. There were blankets everywhere and the lights were turned off. Her 4th grade teacher had apparently called for a nap time, which was weird, but Froggy tried to be good and sleep. But suddenly, her teacher started cuddling her. Froggy woke up and never looked at her teacher the same way again for the rest of the year.
Tolop once worked at a home for developmentally disabled people. One time, she was very sick with a cold and coughed a lot. The problem she had was that whenever she coughed or sneezed too much, she would pee her pants. It really came down to a medical issue she had. One day, she sat in a chair eating lunch. Just then, Tolop began having an epic coughing fit. She must have coughed for a minute straight. When it was over, she got up and realized that she peed through her pants and underpants. Her pee was all over her chair and the floor. Mortified, Tolop ran to get some Lysol wipes. She hoped that if someone smelled pee, they would just assume it was one of the people in the home. To this day, she still hasn't forgotten about it.
When Pandora went to her friend Ramona's house, they went into the woods to look for Slender Man. After a while, they returned to Ramona's house where they went up to her room. Pandora needed to use the bathroom, which was next to her brother Dolan's room. She went into Dolan's room and caught him masturbating out the window. Shocked, Dolan looked back and screamed,
Get out of my room!
and shot her with the BB gun. While Pandora cried, Ramona's family put some dressing on the wound. They're still friends and laugh about what happened to this day, though Pandora has a scar on the bottom of her leg.
It was Saturday afternoon, and I was watching my favorite series on Toonami, Dragon Ball Z. This was the episode with Gohan going Super Saiyan 2. While I was watching the episode, I went to feed my turtle. As I looked for a second, I swear to you, she was going Super Saiyan 2 and she was about to do a Super Spirit Bomb. And I made sure I blinked that I wasn't seeing anything. And then I saw a normal turtle doing turtle things. And then that's when I told myself, I've been watching this show too damn much.
When Snoopy was 10 years old, her cousin threw a huge party. It had water slides, and her whole family and some of the neighbors were there. She was just about to climb a water slide when her older sister, who was 12 at the time, told her to go get a soda from a specific cooler. Snoopy said she wasn't thirsty, but her sister kept telling her, and finally, she gave in. She walked over to the cooler where her uncles and some of the other guys were gathered. They told her which cooler to grab the soda from. She thought it was a little weird, but she did it anyway. When she opened the cooler, a fake rubber snake popped out, which made her jump. She started to cry and was filled with a boiling rage. She then noticed that her uncle had been filming the entire thing. In 4th grade, a classmate told Dolan that he would pay him $20 if he took all the gum from under the desk and chewed it. Dolan actually thought his classmate had the money, and so he did it. Slowly, Dolan went through piece by piece, putting each one on the floor when he was done chewing it. At the end, he asked for his $20, but his classmate just laughed and said, "We never shook on it." Dolan was pissed, so he got the pile of gum and chucked it at him. At the end of the year, Dolan's teacher gave him a trophy for helping clean the school.
Sid stayed home from school one day because he was sick. While he was listening to some music, he heard a loud knock at the door. He opened the door to find a drunk homeless man who said, "I need some drugs." Sid got freaked out and slammed the door. A couple minutes later, there was another knock at the door. Sid opened it to find the same man who just walked inside the house. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't stop the man because he was too big. While the man got comfortable on the couch, Sid went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. However, the man didn't care. He said, "You don't have the balls to do it." Instead, Sid called the police, who came and arrested the man. Now, whenever he's home alone, Sid always looks out the window before opening the door.
One time, Froggy's ex told her that he would like to go out again. Froggy said no, because he was a crazy idiot. He came crying at Froggy's doorstep a few days later, but she still refused. A few days later, Froggy went to her garden to go plant some flowers, and she found "Take me back" written in shit on her lawn. Froggy almost threw up. She got a restraining order against that psycho, and hopefully she'll never see him again. When she was 15, Mimi went to the new apartment of her sister and her fiancé to help them unpack. As they were unpacking, Mimi's soon-to-be sister-in-law asked if she would mind if she drank around her. Mimi said it was fine. Once her friends arrived, they began to play a drinking game called King and I. By the third round, Mimi's future sister-in-law was very drunk. She picked up the cat and walked into the bathroom with it. About an hour later, Mimi walked into the bathroom and found her future sister-in-law in the bathtub, cuddling with the cat while repeating, "I'm the cat woman." Then she climbed out of the bathtub, pulled out her makeup case, and put makeup on the cat. That's when Mimi's sister walked in. After seeing their cat in makeup, she fell to the floor laughing her ass off.
When Tolop was 7, she was in town with her parents and her little brother. While they walked down the sidewalk looking for a place to eat lunch, they began to hear a man shouting. As soon as they turned the corner, they found the source. The man was humping a pole, yelling, "Banana!"
One time when Pringle was taking a walk downtown, he came across a 400-pound homeless woman. This woman was butt ugly and smelled really bad. Pringle wanted to avoid her, but she got right up in his face and said, "I'll show you my vagina for $5. Pringle put his hands up and said, No, thank you." But the woman wouldn't take no for an answer. So she flashed him, burning a hole into Pringle's retina and scarring him for life. Pringle shouted, "I told you no!" and tried to push past her, but the crazy woman followed him saying, "You saw it, so now you have to pay me $5. The woman ended up chasing Pringle halfway down the street until the cops intervened.
One time in Froggy's junior year of high school, she was walking to one of her classes when she saw a senior girl talking to her history teacher. She didn't know what they were talking about, but then she heard the girl shout, "Take away my virginity!" The strange thing was that there was no real context for that, and nobody else around seemed to notice or care. To this day, Froggy had no idea what was going on there.
When Gooby was younger, she was invited to a party and had nothing to wear. She decided to borrow her mom's very expensive antique necklace without asking her. While she was at the party, she had to use the bathroom. After bending over to flush, the necklace disappeared down the bowl, never to be seen again. When her mother found out, she was furious. She sat Gooby down in a chair, duct taped her so that she couldn't move, and put on an endless loop of the show Digimon. Gooby was a Pokemon fan and hated Digimon. She was forced to watch it for 5 long hours. She never borrowed jewelry again.
For 1 week each year at high school, we had a week called Career Week, where different people came and talked about different occupations. On one of the days, my dad came to give a presentation about botany because he's a world-famous botanist. At the whole school assembly where everyone was gathered, he gave a normal talk which I thanked my lucky stars for because he always embarrasses me. Then, right at the very end, he decided to give the pearl of wisdom, which is that it's not about the size, it's what you use it for. Take my son for example, Zaragamba. He's very small, but I imagine he's just fine in bed. Ladies? And I do not understand to this day why on earth he would ever say that. Especially the ladies part.
In middle school, Snoopy shared a locker with her best friend. They were the ones that in school, they liked to share a locker. But one day, Snoopy's friend accidentally picked up her diary full of secrets, thinking it was her math book. She proceeded to read everything that Snoopy had written in that book. A few years later, Snoopy and her friend both got a crush on the same boy. Her friend threatened to tell the boy all of Snoopy's secrets if she didn't back off. And ultimately, it worked out. Snoopy is no longer friends with that girl, and she got the guy.
Zaragamba was hanging out with a girl he liked. He took her to a nearby pizza place when he thought it was the perfect moment to confess his feelings. He said,
"You're like food because you taste good."
Not even a second later, he realized what he'd said. And luckily, she thought it was really funny. But to this day, he's still single.